All right. So let's go to our next important section, which is just a few lines below. এখানে স্যাটায়ার বলে মেনশন করা হয়েছে, যে পলি বলছে যে a woman knows how to be mercenary though she hath never been in a court or at an assembly. তো এখানে কোর্ট উইমেন বা কোর্ট, অ্যাসেম্বলি, পার্লামেন্ট, এগুলোকে স্যাটারাইজ করে বলা হচ্ছে যে একজন মহিলা অনেক আগের থেকেই বুঝে যায়, অনেক আগের থেকেই জেনে যায় যে মার্সিনারি কিভাবে হতে হবে, মানে বৈষয়িক কিভাবে হতে হবে, টাকা পয়সার ব্যাপারটা কিভাবে বুঝে নিতে হয়, সেটা একজন মহিলা এমনিই জানে। ওকে কোনো পার্লামেন্ট, ওকে কোনো অ্যাসেম্বলি, ওকে কোনো কোর্টে গিয়ে সব শিখতে হয় না। তার মানেটা হচ্ছে এটা যে কোর্ট, পার্লামেন্ট, অ্যাসেম্বলি এইসব জায়গায় শুধুমাত্র পয়সা কড়ি নিয়েই আলোচনা হয়। কে কীভাবে পয়সা কামাবে, কে কীভাবে ইত্যাদি এসব জিনিসগুলো করবে, সেগুলোকে নিয়েই আলোচনা করা হয় কোর্ট, পার্লামেন্ট, অ্যাসেম্বলি এইসব জায়গায়। Even if a woman has not gone to a court, which is again another kind of a satire, because the women were not allowed to take part in voting in election, and the women were of course not allowed to enter the parliament and engage in political discussions, because women were always considered to be not adept enough to discuss politics or cricket or football. এটা এই স্টিরিওটাইপটা সবসময় ছিল, আগেও ছিল। তো এইখানে সেটাই বলছে যে কোর্টে না গেলেও, কোর্ট মানে কোর্ট বলতে নট কোর্ট অফ জাস্টিস, রয়্যাল কোর্ট, ওইখানে না গেলেও উইমেনরা শিখে যায় কিভাবে বৈষয়িক হতে হয়, কিভাবে টাকার বিনিময়ে কাজ করতে হয়। দ্যাট ইজ দ্য correct idea of being a mercenary. A mercenary is a person who is working for money and only money, having no other considerations whatsoever. A mercenary only works for money. And usually এখন mercenaryর যে ডেফিনেশনটা হয়েছে সেটা হচ্ছে a person who can kill for money, a mercenary fighter or something like that. Okay, so next let's move on to year 7. Oh, London is a fine town. I have just marked it because of the bold language that is being used here. The word slut is used here, and without any apologies, without any apologetic tenor from the writer, the word slut has been used as a matter of fact, and it's very normal, it's very natural that criminals, people belonging to the criminal class will always use bad words. However, it's not only the criminal people or the criminal class who use bad words. Everybody uses bad words um, in their parlance, in their informal chit chat. So swearings, using bad words, is a kind of a has a kind of a cathartic effect on people. So next, let's move on. Now, in the air itself, the chorus informs that the wench is married, and this is the crisis of the play. I don't know if we have the topic plot construction or dramatic style of John Gay. If there is a question on plot construction, then this is the part of the plot which introduces the crisis. right? Uh, so what is the crisis? The crisis is that the wench, that is Polly, has already been married to Heathcliff. This is something that the parents of Polly did not want to happen, and yet it has taken place. So, all great tragedies are built on the premise of a very crucial conflict, a very bloody, a very evenly poised conflict between two parties, whether it be Macbeth versus the forces of England, or whether it be doubt versus faith, whether it be filial love versus administrative duties, as in King Lear. Um, all major tragedies, all the best of the tragedies always stand on the premise of a proper conflict. This is not a tragedy, but we have a conflict. Even in a comedy, there are conflicts, but the sole difference between a tragedy and a comedy lies in the fact that in a comedy the complication is resolved happily, resolved in a compromise, if not in happiness. But in tragedy, none of the parties are ready to back down, and hence tragedy is inevitable. Conflict augments the tragic elements of the play. But here we know that we are reading a comedy, and hence we know that this conflict, this crisis that has arisen out of the rebellion of Polly against the practices of her parents, which is again another theme, the rebellion of one generation against another. This is very common, this is very universal. This is also one of the reasons as to why Beggar's opera is still popular, because it touches upon, or it deals with universal themes. Universal notions are introduced, which is which is very common. There is always a conflict between uh, the earlier generation and the next generation. Their views do not match, and hence Polly can be considered, if you are writing an answer on Polly's character or role, then Polly can also be understood to be the icon of the rebellion, because Polly has gone against the wishes of her mother and father, and her father being very dangerous. She does not care, and she has gone against. And this is the theme of so many Bollywood movies. Thousands of, if not lakhs, thousands of Bollywood movies are based on this particular theme, where the heroine, where the female actor, lead actress, whatever name you call, rebel against the mafia dad, and the hero is beaten up, and so on and so forth. So this particular line refers to all of these things about the play, and that's why it's important. Now, Peachum says, do you think your mother and I should have lived comfortably so long together if ever we had been married? Baggage. Now, this is a subversion of societal norms. It also inculcates inside us a sense of humor, because this is so very deviant. Deviance makes us laugh, deviance makes us smile. Now, Peachum says something very vital, that if he and Mrs. Peachum would have had been married, then they could not have had lived comfortably as they had been living. So marriage destroys a perfectly um, fun relationship. If you are having a fun relationship with your partner, but if you get married, then and if you start living together, then there are so many odd, there are so many objectionable things that you hear or you see or observe about your hitherto perfect partner, that things get out of the hand, um, things are not so hunky dory after the marriage. And Mr. Peachum has no doesn't hesitate to say that this is true, that if you marry the person you love, and then there is a lot of trouble between the two people, because marriage somehow sours the relationship between people. Anyway, next, it's Mrs. Peachum's dialogue. Thou wilt be ill used and as much neglected as if thou hadst married a lord. Again, a satire against the lords and the ladies, the aristocratic people, and the sham of marriage in their community, in their class. And it's a satire. If they are subverting the rules of society in their secure niche, then why are they concerned about marriage? The community of rogues are outside society and hence can play as they like to some extent. So, Mrs. Peachum, who said earlier that why can't Polly marry and still be a prostitute, because Mr. Peachum has no idea that how women can play, how women can be very smart and have many lovers even after marriage. And we were discussing about why should a man be more interested in a married woman, and so on and so forth. Then why is Mrs. Peachum so worried? Because I mean, these people have been subverting the rules of the society in their comfortable niche, as I pointed out earlier. They are secure. They should not be very worried about that. But it seems that Mrs. Peachum has something else to say at the back of Mr. Peachum, and something else in his presence. It also happens in our families. The mother, in order to assuage, in order to uh, uh, provide us with some kind of false hope, says something that okay, you will be allowed to go on a trip or something like that. But in front of the father, the mother makes a volte face, defects to the party of the father, and you are left awkward, you are left stranded and alone. That earlier your mother supported you, but under, maybe it was a ploy to make her tell about whatever you are hiding from your father, and then actually she belongs to the camp of the father, and she deserts you. Or it could be that, is there a question?
ইয়েস স্যার।
uh, okay, yes, Mohul.
স্যার, আপনি যেটা মানে যখন স্ট্রাকচারটা আমাদের বলছিলেন, বা হাউ মানে হোয়াট ইজ দ্য ক্যারেক্টার অফ বেগার্স অপেরা,
Hmm.
তখন যেটা বলছেন তার মধ্যে কি এটা ইনক্লুড করতে পারি যে ওয়েন মিস্টার অ্যান্ড মিসেস পিচম বোথ আর টকিং অ্যাবাউট পলি, তারা
Hmm.
কখনো কোনো ভালো অ্যাডজেক্টিভ ইউজ করছে না, মানে সবসময় দেখছি যে এই স্লাটের মতো অ্যাডজেক্টিভ গুলো দিয়েই মেয়েকে ডেসক্রাইব করছে। ইজ দিস ইন্টেনশনালি আ পার্ট অফ দ্য প্লে, মানে এটাও কি ওই সাবভার্ট করা বা ডিভিয়েট করা এই ব্যাপারটা?
um, well, there, it can be answered from two perspectives. The first perspective is that, not to complicate things, it's just the language that these people use. Sometimes when we mouth obscenities, our parents say that, are you a rickshaw puller, or are you a laborer? Why are you um, mouthing obscenities like them? So in order to be authentic, gay makes these words to be used as natural, as their lingua franca, as their daily uh, register, because they belong to the underbelly. That's one way of answering it. That why are they calling their own daughter a slut? Because that is what so called uh, low life people do in their households. That's one way to answer it. Another way to answer it is, yes, um, it's a deviation. It's funny, because you are not using a kind of language in your everyday life which you see on the screen or which you see on the stage, and that is attractive because it is different. So of course, I mean, when you are writing a play and you are writing writing dialogues, then of course you are very conscious, and that is very deliberate. So there is no question about that. Yes, Srija?
স্যার, আমি বলছিলাম যে এই যে স্যার, মানে এটা কি এর কারণ কি এটাও হতে পারে যে বিকজ মানে উই অলওয়েজ পারসিভ আ prostitute like as a slut or with those negative adjectives, তাই জন্য মানে জন গে এটাকে মানে এভাবে পুট করেছে, মানে from the perspective of how we see a prostitute.
Well, there's not much of a difference between a prostitute and a slut. I mean, in terms of derogatory sense, slut is more colloquial than prostitute. Um, are you trying to say that gay is trying to make sure that the characters on the stage are identified by the audience?
Yes, sir. Like so that we can relate to those characters.
Um, yeah, I mean, we will not be able to relate to those characters because we will think, because of the language also, we will think that we are different and we are better than sluts and prostitutes and highwaymen. So if you are saying that gay is consciously using these obscene words in order to make the audience identify with the characters, then I don't think we are walking in the right direction. I think the intention is exactly the opposite. What happens uh, in a comedy, I mean, a comedy functions in an objective manner. In order to be funny, a character need not identify, should not, must not be identifiable with the character. You may ask why. Because we as human beings, we as creatures of vanity and pride, we do not like to laugh at ourselves. Self-depreciatory humor is one of the most refined forms of humor which 90% of the human beings lack. We are very conscious about the fact that no one should make fun of us. That is why when we fall down, when we slip on the street, before getting up, we look here and there and try to see if somebody has caught us slipping on a peel of banana or on a slosh of water, because we care about how people perceive us rather than how we perceive ourselves. And we think that if people laugh at us, they will not take us seriously and they will think that we are smaller or lesser creatures, and we always try to show something that we are definitely not. We try to show that we are not butts of ridicule. Now, if you identify, suppose you are you are you are in the audience of this play. I mean, no one is going to identify with Polly because Polly is understood to be a prostitute. I don't want to be a prostitute. I don't want to be called a prostitute, or I don't want to be associated with a prostitute. We'll feel embarrassed if our friends, if any of our friends is a prostitute, or if any, I mean, we are embarrassed of having rustic relatives or poor relations. We don't like to introduce them to our rich friends. So just imagine how embarrassing it will be if the audience is readily identifiable, or the audience readily identifies with a person who is laughed at by the other 100 or 200 or thousands of people present over there. So I think gay, by using these kinds of words, is attempting to do exactly the opposite of what you are saying. He is trying to alienate the audience. If you read up Brecht's theory, then according to his theory, the epic theater is all about alienating the audience, not identifying with the audience. Opera also, in general, is something that ended up alienating audiences, though there was a sense of desired identification with the characters on stage. মানে আমি চাইবো যে আমি নিজেকে ঋত্বিক রোশনের সাথে আইডেন্টিফাই করি, বাট আমি চাইবো না আমি নিজেকে কাঞ্চন মল্লিক বা জনি লিভারের সাথে আইডেন্টিফাই করতে, বিকজ জনি লিভার অ্যান্ড কাঞ্চন মল্লিক not so much, but Johnny Liver is a comedic character. It has to be objectified, it has to be objective, it has to be drawn away from my own self, whereas tragic characters needs to be identified very readily, or heroic characters. I mean, the terms can be interchangeable, but tragedy subjective, comedy objective. And here in this play, this is a comedy, and hence there is Gay understands this basic dynamics of comedy, and he is trying to separate the audience from the characters. However, as a satire, underneath this apparent separation, there is some kind of a identification with the audiences. However, it is not on the level of name calling, it is not on the linguistic level, it is on the level of behavior. I mean, we can call Polly a prostitute, and we can be very morally distant from her, but at the end of the day, whatever we are doing, you are studying, I am so-called teaching, somebody is doing some kind of noble job, doctors are treating their patients, again another noble job. Aren't we all doing it for money? Then aren't we all some kind of a prostitute? That is the question that, if readily comes into the minds of the audience and in every show, then instead of laughing, they will actually be very morose, they will actually be very depressed. যদি আমি এটা ভাবি যে আমার আর ওই স্ট্রিট ওয়াকারের মধ্যে, আমার আর ওই চোরের মধ্যে, আমার আর ওই পলিটিশিয়ানের মধ্যে কোনো তফাৎ নেই অফকোর্স, কিন্তু যদি এটা মেনে নিই, then either our pretenses will fall, or we will generate more sturdy layers of hypocrisy. In both cases, we will not be laughing. We will be distancing ourselves, we will be thinking deeply against the characters that we are seeing on the stage. So, I'm sorry if it's a very long answer, but could I address the concerns of both Mohul and Shrija?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. If you agree, uh, I don't know how you can agree every time. Anyway, so yeah. Then Peacham's dialogue again, an example of satire. He is in a fair way of getting or of dying, and both these ways, let me tell you, are most excellent chances for a wife. So the captain, they are talking about the captain, and McHeath seems to be going to the gallows or dying, and these are very excellent chances for a wife, because a wife will not only get the property of the dead husband, but the woman would also be able to get married again. Unlike our society, widow remarriage was okay with in England. However, you cannot have the property of your husband unless you have a child, and it is the child, if the child is male child, only then will you have the property of your husband. But property might comprise of jewelry also, and that is why, I don't know if you guys will agree with me or not, that is why there was this desire of a woman for jewelry or clothes, and not um, houses, or not property being created, because you can take your clothes, you can take your jewelry, that the husband gave you, or you bought from your husband's money, because it is Sridhan, and not the property. Back then, এখন আলাদা ব্যাপার, back then the woman could not inherit the property of a woman, property of a man, if she does not have a child, and that child should also be a male child. না হলে প্রপার্টিটা ওর ওই হাজবেন্ডের যে নিয়ারেস্ট রিলেটিভ আছে তার কাছে চলে যাবে। দ্যাট ওয়াজ দ্য আইডিয়া। ওকে, এনিওয়ে, লেটস মুভ অন। Mrs. Peacham's dialogue. This highlights the problems of parenting. Now the parents in the audience and the children present here might be able to identify with whatever is being said here by Mrs. Peacham. How the mother is to be pitied who hath handsome daughters. Locks, bolts, bars, and lectures of morality are nothing to them. They break through them all. They have as much pleasure in cheating a father and mother as in cheating at cards. So what kind of morality is she talking about? I mean, of course, they are prostitutes, they are thieves. What kind of a morality is there then? They don't have any morality. Lectures of morality. Now this dichotomy is humorous. It's hilarious that a prostitute, a wife of a thief, is saying that she has been arranging lectures of morality for uh, for her daughter, but the mother tries to save the daughter from all sorts of bad men, bad boys, by keeping them under locks, putting a bolt on the door, and giving them lectures, trying to stop them from going to Oyo hotels with chapri boys. But ultimately the daughters will not listen to reason. They will not they will break all these boundaries, and they will take pleasure in cheating a father and a mother as they take pleasure in cheating at cards. Cheating is always very pleasurable because it provides a sense of thrill. যেটা করতে বারণ করা হবে সেটাই বেশি করে আমরা করি, কারণ সেটাতে মজা বেশি। আমরা সবাই থ্রিল সিকার। যদিও এক পেট ভুঁড়ি নিয়ে বেশি দূর দৌড়তে পারি না, কিন্তু আমাদের থ্রিল খুব ভালো লাগে। উই অল লাভ thrills in our lives, and cheating provides that thrill. Especially this is our original sin, and this could be connected with biblical concept where Adam and Eve ate the fruit of knowledge, and it all started from there. So it's all Eve's fault because she's a woman. That's what the patriarchal point of view might be interested in saying. Anyway, let's move on. So that is a problem of parenting. All parents have this kind of an issue with their children. The children never listen, and the children say that the parents do not listen, the parents are not understanding, and the parents say that the children do not understand, so on and so forth. Peacham's dialogue: then all the hopes of our family are gone forever and ever. Subversion of the order of society. People in the upper classes are always anxious to get their daughters married, like Pride and Prejudice. But here we see the opposite of the middle class society. So the middle class society is mocked by Mrs. Peacham. বিয়ে করে নিলে মিডল ক্লাস ফ্যামিলিজদের মনে হয় বা হতো যে বিয়ে করে নিয়েছে মানে সব সমস্যার সমাধান, মেয়ে ঘাট থেকে নেমে গেছে। আবার উল্টো দিকে ছেলের বিয়ের ঠিক পরে থেকেই সব সমস্যা শুরু হয়ে যায়। And all these things happen in the middle class family, not in the lower classes, not in the aristocratic classes, but these issues happen with the middle class families. They are anxious to get their daughters married, and they think that all their problems lies in the act of their successfully getting their daughters married off. But the problem is attracted to the house with the marriage of the eligible boys in their family. So, but in the family of Mr. and Mrs. Peacham, the entire order is inverted on its head. It's a complete subversion. বলছে যে বিয়ে হয়ে গেছে বলে সর্বনাশ হয়ে গেছে, এরকম একটা ব্যাপার তৈরি হচ্ছে এখানে। নেক্সট, ওকে, patriarchy. Peacham's dialogue: it's the frailty of women, my dear. Frailty, thy name is woman. From which play is this infamous line quoted? Somebody raise your hands and say. Which play has this infamous quotation, infamous dialogue, that frailty, thy name is woman? Mohul?
The Hamlet.
Yes, Hamlet. Shreyoshi, Ishan, all of you are correct. It's Hamlet, where Prince Hamlet was talking about. Who was he talking about? Who is the woman concerned here?
I think about his mother.
Yes, Gertrude. He was talking about Gertrude, his mother, that she had gotten married to Claudius. You see, again, marriage is the epicenter of all problems. So that's also what is being meant here. And women, according to Mrs. Peacham, and this is deliberate. John Gay is nodding to Hamlet. This is a eulogy by Gay. This is a nod given by Gay to Shakespeare. Okay. Next. Okay. Mrs. Peacham's dialogue. Now this pertains to the theme of marriage. If she had only an intrigue with the fellow, why the very best families have excused and huddled up a frailty of that sort? It's marriage, husband, that makes it a blemish. Again, another subversion based on the theme of marriage. প্রেম টেম করছে ঠিক আছে, তো অনেক অনেক রেসপেক্টেড ফ্যামিলিজে, অনেক বেস্ট ফ্যামিলিজে, বলিউডে তো এটা নিউজ হয়, কিন্তু তাদের ওতে তো কিছু যায় আসে না, ওরা ওগুলোকে হাস আপ করে দেয়। এমনকি এখন মিডল ক্লাস এখন তো ছেড়ে দাও, নাও দ্য থিংস হ্যাভ চেঞ্জড আ লট। 90s-এর যদি মিডল ক্লাস ফ্যামিলিতে দেখো, ওইখানেও মাঝে মধ্যেই ওই প্রেম টেম হতো, অ্যাফেয়ার হতো, আনওয়ান্টেড প্রেগনেন্সিজ হয়ে যেত, পিপল ইউজ টু বি ওকে উইথ ইট। একটুখানি গসিপ হতো, একটুখানি এই রে শুনেছি সেরকম একটা ব্যাপার হতো, অ্যান্ড দেন থিংস ডাইড ডাউন। বাট মিসেস পিচাম ইজ ওয়ারিড দ্যাট হার daughter has married and that is a blemish on their family. আগে পালিয়ে গিয়ে বিয়ে করলেও নাক কেটে যেত মানুষের ফ্যামিলিতে, কিন্তু বিয়ে না করলে, মানে যার সাথে প্রেম করছে তাকে বিয়ে না করলে আরো বেশি আগেকার সময় সমস্যা হতো। মানে there is a classic phrase or a sentence used by classic kakimas, পাড়ার কাকিমাস, who would say, হ্যাঁ রে, এই ছেলেটা তো সে নয় যার সাথে ওকে দেখতাম। And that is the worst or the best that a পাড়ার কাকিমা or a relative could do to injure the reputation of a family. আর ভরা, মানে সবাই ভরা ম্যারেজ পার্টিতে এরকম ধরনের উক্তি অনেক মহিলারাই করে থেকেছে। এখন কেউ বলতেও যায় না, আর মানে যদি বলতেও যায় তাহলে মানে তার চূড়ান্ত অপমান করে দেওয়া হয়। এমনকি মা বাবারাই বলে দেয় যে হ্যাঁ, এ তো আলাদা, এ তো কাকু, এ তো সরকারি চাকরি করে, আর ও যে ছিল সে ছাপড়ি ছিল। সো ইটস লাইক, it's especially in Bengali middle class culture, it is now a completely understandable thing. And Padar Kakima have also learned that if that can happen to their family also. আর এখন তো কাকিমারা নিজেরাই প্রেম টেম করে ঘুরে বেড়ায়, so it's absolutely fine. Next is Picham বলছে, a rich rogue nowadays is fit company for any gentleman. Satire on the value of money over real values, if there is anything called real values. তো যার কাছে টাকা আছে, মানি হ্যাঁ তো হানি হ্যাঁ। এই যে যেমন ধরো শাহজাহান শেখ, the king of Sandeshkhali, what did he have? He had money, and many gentlemen or politicians, the term I think is mutually exclusive now, they were in the company of this great man because this great man had money. তো যার কাছে টাকা আছে সেই ভগবান, এবং সেই তার সঙ্গেই আমরা থাকতে চাই, কারণ সে আমাদেরকে আইসক্রিম খাওয়াবে ইত্যাদি। And we do not want to be associated with a common person. Yes, Orna says, was just waiting when you will take the name of your favorite Shah Jahan Sheikh. Yes, I am obsessed with Shah Jahan. I want to be like him. So yeah. Anyway, but I mean, Shah Jahan is the latest, but Sudipto Sen, we have all forgotten Sudipto Sen, or Orpita Chatterjee, or Partho Chatterjee. Money, I mean, okay, let's not dwell on that. Anyway, so Polly is saying something here. It was only Niming Ned. He brought in a damask window curtain, a hoop petticoat, a pair of silver candlesticks, a periwig, and one silk stocking from the fire that happened last night. Read these lines carefully. The disturbing fact is not that Niming Ned, another thief, petty thief, has bought a damask window curtain, a hoop petticoat, a pair of silver candlesticks, a periwig, and silk stockings. But the disturbing fact is that he has secured it from a fire that happened. He has stolen it while people were running away for their lives from the fire. And the London fire is an infamous one. I don't know if it happened during this time, or maybe the reference is to that London fire. You all remember Amity Hospital, which burnt up, or any other cases of places going up in flames. And some people would be busy trying to steal the valuables of people who have fled, who are dying, who are suffocating. Some people. And this is a metaphor. Fire here means, London fire happened much before that. I think it happened in the 17th century. Anyway, so this is a metaphor. What does it mean? It means that when people are dying, when people are in a very sorry state, some people are taking advantage of that. Instead of helping them, they are taking away whatever they have left. In our society, this is very common. If you are in a problem, some people will come to vulture on you. Some people will come to eat whatever is left of it, because you're already weak. And they are, and the thieves often wait for an opportunity like this, like elections, or COVID, or a war, or a plague, or something like that. I mean, COVID was a plague. So some people are always waiting for other people to get into trouble so that they can make some profit of it. Instead of helping the people who are dying in the fire, Niming Ned has stolen a lot of materials, and Polly is very happy about it, or Polly is nonchalant about it. Eta to hoyi thake. It's so absolutely normal. Then Peachum says, "And how do you propose to live, child? Like other women, sir, upon the industry of my husband." So Peachum is very worried that how is Polly going to live, because she is getting married and she will not be able to attract a lot of clients. And Polly says that I'll live on my husband's income. What's so strange about it? This is patriarchal, or this is humorous, because industry, the word industry is used. I mean, we all know that Mekhit is a thief. The thief actually lives off on the industry of others, and she মানে চোরের ওপর বাটপাড়ি করবে, and only a woman, or only a wife, not a woman, but a wife can do that. A wife will make the husband work, and the wife might take away whatever the husband has been working so hard for. Some men are very hardworking. Some men, like some women, are very hardworking, and they work a lot, and they secure a position in the society for what? To keep their wife and girlfriend, not always at the same time, but nowadays maybe all at the same time, happy. তো রোজগারটা অ্যাকচুয়ালি সে নিজে বেড়াতে যাওয়ার জন্য করছে। And I'm not glorifying men. This is like, that's what they do because they're fools. And a wife controls the wealth of the husband. But things are changing, and the wife is now earning on her own, and she does not need a husband's money anymore, or a man's money anymore. But it's good that they have two incomes. I mean, if a woman is well established and her husband is also earning, then her money is hers and her husband's money is also hers. So, but that is not the case with all. But back then, when women were not allowed to work or they were not given proper education, then their career, the career of a woman, would depend upon how rich a husband will she get. That that decided the fate of women back then. Mr. Peacham says, the comfortable estate of widowhood is the only hope that keeps up a wife's spirits. It's like that dialogue from the Nayak movie. The secretary, what's his name? Um, he's a good actor, Paresh Rawal. Paresh Rawal, the character played by Paresh Rawal, says that ये तो धोती खोल रहा है. That is what is happening here. A wife, a wife is tolerating the husband for the money that the husband is providing to the wife, and the wife counts the days before the husband dies so that the wife can enjoy the estate and the wealth of the husband. And that is the only hope in which they live, the wives. That is why many people would marry a kaku and would wish that the kaku would die soon and the woman can enjoy the money. I mean, those were the compulsory situations back then. But now things are very different, because now the women are earning on their own and they don't need a kaku or anyone else to give them money and have a good life. Anyway, so it's not essential because I just marked the date. Then Mrs. Peacham says, to have him impeached, him here means Mekhit, is the only thing could ever make me forgive her. So Mrs. Peacham is already thinking as to how Polly could make sense of her existence, make sense of all this by peaching Mekhit herself and getting the commission for helping the authority. That is the only way in which Mrs. Peacham might forgive Polly. Okay. This is just the name of the song, and then Mrs. Peacham says, those cursed playbooks she reads have been her ruin, and this is self-referential and commenting on other plays as well. বই পড়ে পড়ে মাথাটা গেছে, মানে সে একটা ফেসবুকে একটা ভিডিও আসে না, যে একটা অ্যানিমেশন আসে মনে হয়, যে একজন মা তার মেয়েকে বা ছেলেকে বকছে, সারাদিন ফোন ফোন ফোন, কিছু বছর আগে সারাদিন টিভি টিভি টিভি, কিছু বছর আগে সারাদিন রেডিও রেডিও রেডিও, তার কিছু বছর আগে সারাদিন নভেল নভেল নভেল, এরকম করে সেই একদম প্রাচীন যুগে চলে যাচ্ছে আর কি। তো this is a mother saying that those playbooks that she reads, these plays that she reads, these novels that she reads, poems that she reads, this is the ruin of all women. তাই জন্য মহিলাদেরকে পড়তে দেওয়া উচিত ছিল না, কারণ মহিলারা পড়ে নিয়ে তাদের মাথাটা খারাপ হয়ে যাচ্ছে। সেই এক সময় একটা জায়গায় আমি পড়েছিলাম, এটা সত্যি বলা হতো কি না আই ডোন্ট নো, বাট আই থিঙ্ক তাই, মানে এটাই হতো, যে বলা হতো যে যদি মহিলারা স্কুলে যায় বা পড়াশোনা করে তাহলে খুব তাড়াতাড়ি তারা উইডো হয়ে যাবে। মহিলারা পড়াশোনা করলে তাড়াতাড়ি তাদের হাজবেন্ড মারা যাবে। So that's why parents did not want their daughters to go to school, so that their husbands live long. Anyway, I mean, Here is a plot twist in Mrs. Peacham's dialogue. এই জায়গাটাতে আমরা একটা প্লট টুইস্ট দেখতে পাচ্ছি. The thing husband must and shall be done for the sake of intelligence. We must take other measures and have him peached the next session without her consent. If she will not know her duty, we know ours. তো ওরা ডিসাইড করছে, মিস্টার অ্যান্ড মিসেস পিচাম এরা ডিসাইড করছে যে মেকহিতকে রাস্তা থেকে সরিয়ে দেবে, and Mekhit will be peached. Mekhit will be given up to the authorities, given up to the law, and they will get a commission for it. And at the same time, Polly would also be free from the influence or from the marriage of Mekhit, and she can carry on with her duties and her life as usual. Now this is Polly's soliloquy. Though I don't know if you have reference to the context questions, I think you will not have any, and this is the area which could throw up a few questions for the RTC, the reference to the context questions, but I have just marked it because this is Polly's soliloquy. It tells a lot about her character. And then let's move to another section. That this is it, Mekhit's dialogue. You might sooner tear a pension out of the hands of a courtier, a fee from a lawyer, a pretty woman from a looking glass, or any woman from quadrille, but to tear me from thee is impossible. So many people satirized all in the same line, all in the same sentence. Courtier who works at the court, he is working only for his pension, like I am. I'm not a courtier but a teacher, and I just imagine that I will live off on a fat pension after I retire. That is my ambition, or that is my wish or hope. Lawyer will not part with his or her fee, and a pretty woman will never give up a looking glass. Similarly, a woman would never desist from playing quadrille. It's a kind of a card game. You have read your Rape of the Lock, where you know how women, according to Pope or according to people in that age, imagined or thought that people will be interested in, the women will always be interested in playing cards because they have nothing else to do. So similarly, Mekhit will never be parted from Polly, like jab tak rahega samosa mein aloo, stuff like that. Next, there is an internal conflict in Polly's mind, and when Mekhit says that then must I then go, Polly says, and will not absence change your love. Now she is having her doubts. বিয়ের পরপরই পলির মনের মধ্যে অন্য কাপলদের মতনই তার মনের মধ্যেও ডাউট আসলো যে আমার অ্যাবসেন্সে তুমি অন্য কারোর সাথে প্রেম করবে না তো, বা আমরা সবসময় আমাদের স্পাউস বা গার্লফ্রেন্ড বয়ফ্রেন্ড এদেরকে চেক করতে থাকি যে এত রাত্রিরে কেন সে হঠাৎ করে অনলাইন হয়েছিল, আমাকে গুড নাইট বলে সে কি করছিল. So Polly is also thinking in those lines. Act 2, Scene 1. So the first act is done. The second act. Second act. Okay. Character of Mekhit. Mekhit's dialogue is revealing the character of Mekhit. What is he saying? What a fool is a fond wench. জোরে বলার সাহস নেই. বলছে যে একটা মানে প্রেমে পড়া মহিলার থেকে বেশি বড় বোকা আর কেউ হয় না. প্রেমে পড়লে নাকি মহিলারা ব্রেনটাকে ফেলে দেয় বা রেখে দেয় লকারে, and then they start to fall in love, according to many people, according to Mekhit. Polly is most confoundedly bit. I love the sex, and a man who loves money might as well be contented with 1 guinea as I with 1 woman. The town perhaps have been as much obliged to me for recruiting it with free-hearted ladies as to any recruiting officer in the army. If it were not for us and the gentlemen of the sword, Drury Lane would be uninhabited. তো বলছে যে আমার মহিলাদেরকে খুব ভালো লাগে, মহিলাদেরকে বোকা বানানো খুব সহজ, ম্যাকিথ বলছে। তারপরে বলছে যে আমি যে মানুষ পয়সা ভালোবাসে সে, তাহলে বলা যেতে পারে যে পয়সা ভালোবাসে সে একটা গিনি নিয়ে একটা সোনার কয়েন নিয়েও খুশি থাকবে, কিন্তু তা তো নয়। ঠিক সেরকমই আমি মহিলাদের ভালোবাসি, তাই জন্য একজন পার্টিকুলার মহিলাকে আমি ভালোবাসবো না, আমি অনেকজন মহিলাকে ভালোবাসবো। এবং it is he who has brought women to the Drury Lane, to the brothel, and he compares himself with our recruiting officer of the army. Like the recruiting officer goes from village to village recruiting soldiers for the noble cause of fighting a war. Similarly, Macheath has collected women from all over the country on false promises of marriage and then sold them to the brothel. That is Macheath's side business, part time. আমরা যেমন পার্ট টাইম কবিতা টবিতা লিখি, আবৃত্তি করি, গান করি ইত্যাদি, ম্যাকিথের পার্ট টাইম কাজ হচ্ছে এইটা। So we now know the character of Macheath. Okay, so I'll stop here today since it's a 1 hour class. If you have any questions, you may ask now, or if you do not have any questions, you may leave the meeting. Yeah, I mean that was something else that Mohul is saying, agreeing to. Okay, no questions, fine, then let the meeting end here.